everyone, we're going to continue talking about statistics today. So last lesson we talked about asking statistical questions, asking questions that you're going to get a variety of answers to. There's not just one right answer. So when we ask our statistical questions, we know we need to get a good sample, a good representative number of people to represent our population, all of the people that we're asking about in our statistical question. And we decided that random samples, where everyone in the population has an equal chance of getting picked, are the best way to create a sample to answer our statistical question. So we talked about a few ways to do this, using patterns, every fourth person, using a method where everyone has an equal probability of getting picked, like drawing names out of a hat. And we talked about using subgroups and then sampling those subgroups. But today we're going to talk a little bit about using a method similar to every fourth person. So what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about using random number generators. So, what is a random number generator? Random number generators are a way to create a list of who you're going to sample without picking it yourself, making it truly random. And there are a few things that do this. You can find random number generators online. You can find random number generators in old statistics books. You can find random number generators on graphing calculators. But today we're going to use random number generators on Google because they're the easiest way that all of us have access to. I know not all of us have old statistics books or graphing calculators, so we're really lucky that Google has a random number generator just for us already. So if you just Google random number generator, what pulls up is you can tell it the smallest number you want, the largest number you want, and say we're picking all students in Mount Jefferson Junior High. There are 79 of you, so it's between student number 1 and student number 79. You can use this to pick as many students as you want. And so what you could do is you could actually write down the number it's giving you. So I'll take number 51, number 11, number 77, and so on. And I could keep generating random numbers until I have the sample size I want. So if I wanted to sample 10 students out of the school, I would click generate 10 times and write down those 10 numbers. If I wanted a sample size of 25, I could do it 25 times. One thing is you just have to be careful. Sometimes numbers might repeat. And if a number repeats, you don't ask the same person the question again. You just get a different number. And that is how we can use random number generators on Google. Random number generators are really fantastic in that they're completely unbiased. And there are a few reasons why. The first is that there are no people involved, so there's no room for human error. So when I say no room for human error, it really means no room for human biases. So what could happen is even if you're doing a method that is somewhat random and is one of the recommended random sampling methods, like picking every fourth person or, I don't know, picking names out of a hat, you could have some bias. Now, if people are in line and they see you're talking to every fourth person, they might rearrange themselves, right? Because maybe they don't want to talk to you, maybe they do. So that could have a little bit of bias in it because it turns from something random to something a little bit more voluntary. When you're picking names out of a hat, maybe you put all the names in and you didn't shake up the jar, so the people at the table closest to the door that maybe you got to last, all their names are on top. So those are the ones you pick. So random number generators take out that element of human bias, human mistake. So another thing that is great about this and great about all random samples is that every member of the population truly has an equal chance of being chosen. So these are two things about random number generators that make them an excellent tool for using when making a random sample. So we know what a random number generator is now, and we know how to use it. We find it on Google. We know why it's good. It doesn't have biased samples, but how do we use it? How does it work with creating a random sample? So let's give the example of asking what's the favorite food of students at Mount Jefferson Junior High. So our entire population is students at Mount Jefferson Junior High, and we know we need to take a representative sample, a small group of students that are going to represent the whole school, and ask them this. So what we can do to get a random sample, instead of picking every fourth person or picking a name out of a hat where there's a little bit of bias there, what we can do is we can assign numbers to students. We could do this a couple of different ways. We could line up every student alphabetically and give them numbers 1 to 79. We could line them up from shortest to tallest and give them 1 to 79. We could put them all in a room and just whoever we get to first is 1 through 79. Or we could even do something like randomly pick the number of their locker, because every person at school has a locker, so there's an equal chance of being chosen. So let's take an example. Let's say we pick students from 7th grade. So in the 7th grade, there are 20 of us. So I'm going to have you guys all listed alphabetically. I'm going to pick a random sample of you. So I'm in Google and I am taking a sample from 1 to 20, and I'm going to pick each number. So it's always going to have 1 first. So I'm going to click Generate, and I'm going to pick student number 5, student number 2, student number 13, student number 9, and student number 14. Now I have these 5 students that I'm going to have represent the 7th grade. And what I've done is I've just lined them up in alphabetical order. So we're going to add in student 5 to 13, 9, and 14. So I've gone in and I've added the initials of each person. I don't want to have your full names out there on the internet. But this is who that random number generator decided to be representative of the 7th grade. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, Mrs. Ocaña, there are more people like this in the sample than are in the population. And that's what we're going to see is when we have smaller samples, the smaller our sample is, the less likely it is to perfectly represent the population, right? Because if we, like I said in our last lesson, if we only sample 1 person out of 1,000, it's not very likely that that person's opinions or their answers to our statistical questions are going to represent the whole population. And here we have 5 out of our 20 population. Our sample size is 5, and they're probably going to do an okay job representing what we all think as a class on a statistical question, but we'll see that the more people that we include in our sample, the closer we get with our sample size to our actual population size, the better it's going to represent our whole population. So that's the thing with statistics is you have to weigh how reasonable it is to ask the whole population a statistical question versus how big of a sample size you ought to have. So, like I said last lesson, if you have a sample size of 20, our whole class, it would be really reasonable to ask everybody. So that's what we would want to do. We would want to ask every single person our statistical question because it would be really easy. There are only 20 of us. Now with this whole school, with 79 people, with a quick question, it might be reasonable to ask everybody, and then we'd go ahead and do that. But there are some questions or some scenarios where 79 people is a lot to ask some things of. So we might take a representative random sample. All right, so I hope you learned a little bit about some random sampling today. All right, have a good day and work hard.